so that everybody is working towards the same mission, and that you, as the leader, are able to count on others in your organization to keep things going and be inspired by you. So please welcome to the stage Dr. Anderson.
All right, good morning. This is super cool. I love this venue. This is really neat. Towards the end, I'm from Virginia. My wife's from Idaho. We looked all over the country as to where to set up camp, and we're like, hey, let's move back to Virginia. Let's live out in the country a little bit. And so we had this romantic view of what it would be like. So we bought 6.1 acres out of the city a little bit. We're in a town of 80,000 people. We're outside of there, and it was fun, but it loses a little bit of the glimmer and glow every spring when I go out to the shed, and in the South we call it a weed whacker, and I get the weed whacker and I wrestle with this thing and think some words that maybe I shouldn't, and I'm like, why don't you just take care of yourself? This is what I thought last time, because the thing never wants to start. And I've gone through many models of it and it just never works. And the goal is to have something that works and fixes itself. The goal in any business, and for us our practices, is to have a well-oiled machine. And we want something more than that. And to explain that further, I was reminded of a joke that I read in a Reader's Digest that I literally pulled off my mother-in-law's kitchen table 20 years ago. And it was a story about a heart surgeon, and he takes his motorcycle to the mechanic, and he says, here, can you fix this? And the mechanic does so, and the mechanic says to the surgeon, hey, you and I pretty much do the same thing. We open it up, we take out the parts that are worn out, we replace them, we clean things up, put it back together, and send people on their way. So why do you get paid the big bucks? And then so the surgeon says, with a little bit of a smile, yeah, well, I do it with the engine still running. And so that, there's a big difference. And having a well-oiled machine is good, and that's what we want. But as the mechanic can point out, as my dead weed whacker can point out, it takes a lot of effort. And to have an organism that heals itself and manages homeostasis on its own, that's what you want. That does require more effort. To explain this further, my wife and I were talking at the table just a few months ago. To set the scene, I'm here, table's here, she's here, table's here, and our 4-year-old daughter's playing, I think she was drawing, on the other end of the table. And my wife is talking to me, and without skipping a beat, right as a glass got knocked over by our toddler, it rolled, and my wife just does this no-look grab. And it was the coolest thing. I was like, wow, I'm married to Black Widow. And so she was pretty thrilled about this too. She's like, did you see that? She turned to her other kid, did you see that? And she's like, that was, and this is what she said, that was the ultimate ninja move, the no-look catch. And I was like, that was pretty sexy. That was neat. And so my daughter has no idea that this happened. And we're all sitting there watching just something amazing happen. And that, if we continue the analogy of a living organism, is what we're going for, is the ultimate ninja move, the no-look catch. And to explain what it means is, if you look at yourself as the boss, you are the brain or the eyes sometimes. And if you see something happen, you tell the other part of the body, our business or practice, go fix that thing, catch that glass before it breaks, and, report what happened. But the no-look catch is what you're going for in a well-run, living organism practice business. And so it is when a part of the business recognizes something's wrong, fixes the problem immediately before the brain really knows about it. And so that's That's what we're shooting for, and that's what I want to teach us about today. And so the no-look catch, I wanted to give some examples of that, and I just, bring from my experience, and I'm going to read this because I wrote it down because I didn't want to forget anybody. And I tried to keep these all within the last 60 days, just to show that, this isn't just cherry picking. It's when I was out of town, Julie and Carrie, our COO and lead nurse, they took a dizzy patient home because she was too dizzy to drive, and that was when I was out of town. Laura, a nurse, Diana, a nurse practitioner, learning about a tragic situation of one of the patients, and they went and bought food and made food, and then drove an hour just to get to their house to deliver the food, all on their own. And then Dee, she's one of our nurses, she had some extra time. She noticed a hole that got punched in the wall by a chair where a patient sat back too fast. And so she spackled it and sanded it and painted it, all on her own. And that was just last month. And then Beth, she's my assistant. Last week she came in on Saturday on her own. She texted me, she's like, hey, I'm coming on Saturday, so I can. And she put up a cabinet so that we could declutter some of the other parts of the office. And then Lori, my personal nurse, she was going out for breast cancer surgery, but there was something going on with the patient and she wanted to make sure it got taken care of. So even though she is going out for a major surgery, which is pretty scary, and she made sure that she took care of this patient and gave them her personal cell phone number and was good on that offer and did several phone calls while she's recuperating on her couch with her dog. And they did this all on their own. And so if this sounds like bragging, it is. It is bragging on them, and they've done this all on their own. But here's the big question in all caps. How do we do that? And okay, this is the part where it gets interactive. This is a quote. It sounds like it's from a fortune cookie, but I think you guys are all familiar with it. So I'm going to say the majority of the quote, and then I'm going to have you, out loud, say the last word. And so you out loud, say the last word. So it's something to the effect of, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is, yes, now, today. And so when we hear that quote, it's usually talking about, a call to action. Let's do something now, act now. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the first part. We're going to talk about 20 years ago. I think, and stay with me on this, that we're in the 20 years ago phase of DPC, of even our own practice. I would say almost everybody here has been in practice in DPC for less than 5 years. Has anybody gone more than 5 years? So a few folks, but everybody else, less than that. And so we are in that phase where we are making the foundation. It's 20 years ago, at least in DPC, and I submit in a lot of our personal practices. So we can do things now that makes a difference. So I want to talk about tech startups. There's a lot that you can learn about businesses, even if yours is really small, from Harvard Business Review. I recommend reading it every once in a while. It'll put you to sleep most of the time. But if you're awake at 3:20 in the morning in a hotel in Denver, it's a good read. And so we're going to talk about tech startups. Back in the 90s, when tech startups were a real big thing and Silicon Valley was becoming known as Silicon Valley, they started tracking a little over 200 businesses. And these businesses were growing rapidly. And it was this kind of petri dish of sorts to see how things worked. And so they followed them for over a decade. Some of them they're actually still following for certain things. And they looked at, amongst many other things, how they went about hiring people. And so what I want to talk to you about, to look at the tree analogy again, is you want fruit, you want good fruit, you want people that are going to help your patients, going to help you, you want to help them. So instead of focusing on the fruit, I want us to focus on the seed. And so they looked at in the Harvard Business Review at these 200 plus businesses, and they looked at the 3 models that they recognized that kind of surfaced for how they hire. Let's see how this thing works. Okay, that's a cool stat that I'm not even going to talk about. But this is what they did. And so they looked at the 3 models. And so one they called the STAR model. It's essentially a merit-based model. So it's, you're the top of your class, you got all these awards, we want you because you're top of your class and got all these awards. Second one is what they call, in the study, the professional model. And that is, they hire based on skill set. We need somebody that does this very specific skill, and you fit the bill, so you, sir, are hired. And so that's what they call the professional model, but it's skill-based. And then the last one they call the commitment model, and that one is value-based. And that's where they take the values that people share, and they hire based on that almost exclusively, regardless, but not completely, of skill sets and merit. Again, they're not just, hiring people who don't have a clue at all about what they're doing, but they found that over 300% more likely to succeed were the businesses that did this commitment model, that hired almost exclusively off of shared values. Google is one of those that did that in the very beginning when there were like 12 people. And so it has a lot less to do with credentials and a lot more to do with what they value. I want to talk about a few specific examples because it doesn't make a ton of sense until you see it in person. So this is Julie. She was a PT for 25 years. That's all she did. She was a mom for a while. She took a break. And then after that, she went right back to PT. She graduated from Emory back in the day, and she was doing PT back before women did in a lot of the ways that she was. And she's okay with me sharing this. She was a patient of our office. And all of a sudden, I started seeing these Facebook posts that she's making on, we have like a recommendation page or something on Facebook. It's like, where do I get a good plumber? Or how can I find this and that for my child? And she started posting things on there. Not once, not twice, not thrice, several times. And she would really prop us up online. And it was clear that she understood our model, why we did things, and that she was excited about it. And so I reached out to her, and she was very surprised. And I was like, hey, I've got an idea. She's like, yeah, tell me more. It's like, how about you be our chief operating officer? And she was pretty taken aback by that. And she said over and over, I'm not an expert in that. I don't know anything about this. I'm a PT, and that's all that I do. But she totally understood what we did, and more importantly, why we do it. And she has done a dynamite job for the last 2 years. And so that is an example of hiring based on values and not a lot else. To point it out, like, she is an awesome human being, and she's done great in several different things in her life, but the exact skill set that we were looking for, that wasn't her. That's not something she possessed. Here's the other one. This is a story where I opened my practice out of desperation. I was like, I am depressed, unfortunately suicidal because of my other job, working for the man, and it was awful, and I heard the words direct primary care in that order, and 93 days later, opened up a practice. Like, I Zoomed, and I had no money, and so I opened up in an old Pilates studio, and I was putting down the flooring like the weekend before we opened up, because I didn't have a job, and so I was trying really hard to make sure I could make money for my 4 kids and wife and everything. And so I was tired after doing this for about 9 hours. I went to the cafe two doors down. I was hungry, again, tired, and I went and I looked at the prices, and I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot afford anything in here. And so I just sat there, and I got a drink, and I just sat, and I was like tired, trying to keep my eyes open, and I see this 20-something-year-old redhead just running the joint. She was saying hi to people, checking on people's checks here, checking on their food there, bringing up things there, and just doing it all with a smile and about 1,000,000 miles a minute. I was like, wow, she's a really hard worker. And fast forward 2 years, we had, like, she would come to our office and deliver food and things like that. I had a paycheck at the time. And then ultimately one thing led to another, and now she's my personal assistant for 3 years now, and she does our accounts. And I text her like, hey Beth, can you tell me how much money you recouped for us in the last 12 months? And she sent me a text yesterday. It was like, hey, this is the updated amount. So $31,000 that she brought back to our office just because she is dogged in what she does. And she's the nicest human being. She could like come up and slap you in the face and you'd be like, thank you, that was a wonderful slap in the face. Like, she's just so nice. And this is her and her husband exactly a week ago, like almost to the minute. Her showing up on a Saturday to the office just to get the job done with her husband. She got a babysitter for her daughter, and like she came, and that is amazing. And so, again, hiring based off of who they are. And a side note, why am I there? It's a Saturday, and so I think this is like a side that I do want to make is they know that I'm working very hard, and I was already at the office for 2 hours before she even showed up on Saturday. I don't go every Saturday. Please know that. But I mean, they just know. And this is the third example. This is Laura, and we were hiring about 2 months ago a pediatric nurse because we welcomed a pediatric nurse practitioner into our office, and we were having a hard time hiring somebody because high standards, and she did not make the first or second cut when we were going through all the applications and resumes. And then through some cool experiences, her resume landed back on our desks, and we started talking, and she was very sick as a child, lots of complications. She's lost about 70% of her hearing because of some of these complications. And so she had no pediatric experience. She didn't do school for peds or how to do blood work on a child or, things like that. And so that's why she didn't make the first and definitely not the second cut. But she understood and understands so well what it is to be sick as a child and as an adult, what it is to have parents or to be parents to a child who is ill chronically. And so she can really see those people for who they are. And so now she is, she's been our pediatric nurse for 5 weeks, and she's already got 75 patients in the first 5 weeks, and had shout outs on Google reviews, and just like doing awesome. And she has a really cool stethoscope. And it's just really cool. And those are the things that I want to talk about. And I want to open this up to a Q&A because we are in the infancy of direct primary care, and I want to make this practical for everybody in the room. But in closing, for this part, why does this work? It's because, for many reasons. If you plant a good seed, you get good fruit. But more than that, if you see them as some kind of credential, a certification, an award, that's what they did and the paper they got. But when you look at them for their ideals and their values, you see them as a person. And that's what creates such a strong relationship